Welcome to this episode of TAC Tic Talk. I'm Dr. Joe Busch, along with publisher of the American Chiropractor, Jaclyn Touzard. Today, we are joined by Dr. Chris Tomshack. Dr. Tomshack built HealthSource from a single Cleveland area clinic into the largest chiropractic-owned franchise in the world, focusing on replicable systems instead of personality-driven practices. From what I understand, Dr. Tomshack, you started out trying to build a business, and what you really found out, you built a job. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
How's that for an intro, Dr. Tomshack?
I think it's pretty spot on. I'm kind of liking it and feeling good about myself right now.
Well, it's true, right? So you're the largest chiropractic-owned franchise in the world, and we're honored to have you. I'm excited to get to meet you here personally. We've met in the past through, of course, FCA shows and whatnot, but can you just talk a little bit about how you have been able to grow that single chiropractic practice into what is now over 100 clinics around the world?
Absolutely. We're sitting at 132. We're opening up about 20 more this year. And just for point of clarification, we are not the largest chiropractic franchise. We are the largest that practices full scope with full chiropractic and rehab. So that's our differentiator. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So to answer your question, how did it all begin and how did we end up where we're at today? It grew out of, honestly, a personal need. I'll never forget the day. I've been in practice a few years. We built an enormous practice. We're doing great. At least I thought we were doing great. Until I took a vacation. I was taking my family skiing. And I remember, because we had about a noon, if memory serves, flight. So I popped into the office that Monday morning, and I had to rent a doc, as we've all done, or majority of us have done. And I thought, you know what? I better just listen to this first patient. So I literally stood outside the door of that adjusting room, put my ear up against the door. I just wanted to listen to the conversation. And I remember the patient. His name was Daryl. We called him Big D because he was a very large man. And as soon as he found out I wasn't there, he very politely said, "Thank you for telling me Dr. T is on vacation. I'm going to wait till he gets back." And that's what I heard. And I quickly sprinted down the hall so he wouldn't see me because I was trying to leave to go on vacation. I thought, my God, we're doing great here. And I can't even take a paid vacation. I actually left that morning going on vacation, feeling rather despondent. Thought, wow, I built myself a jail. There's got to be a better way to do this. And that's what started this whole thing.
I don't think that's unique to you. That's what you hear when you go to these seminars. Guys are like running on fumes, and their vacation is the seminar for CEs, and then they're right back in the clinic on Monday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, right back exhausted in the clinic.
Exhausted because they just got done inundated with this rejuvenating information that they heard through the classes, but they don't get any time to really process it. They're right back doing it on Monday. Jaclyn, now with the magazine, we don't have that kind of turn and burn that chiropractors have, right? But you've heard this even with Rick. Sometimes I think that a personality-driven practice can be very frustrating to get and hard to get away from.
Chris and our listeners, Rick is our older brother, who's also, we've always been studying over, gosh, I think Dr. Joe and I have at least 30 years under our belt. Doctor, I've seen you at these shows. For how many years have you been at it?
Oh my gosh, long time. We launched originally in '94. So it's been a long time we've been seeing each other at these seminars and conferences.
I was going to say, so we've noticed, and we've done a lot of articles over the years about the personality-based practice, which sounds good at first and it's feel good, but it's a total ego-driven thing, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, if you can't take a vacation, then it's exactly what you're saying, Chris, is that you've built yourself a jail cell. So tell me, what have you done or what have you found over the years with over 103 clinics or 132 now you guys are approaching? Mm-hmm. Holy cow. Most chiropractors struggle with just one, Chris. So tell us, give us some words of wisdom to help us find out your evolution over these years and at least providing some solutions for our listeners.
Sure. So the evolution is very slow. It's very steady. It's very methodical. When done appropriately, then you can begin to accelerate it. So let's talk about the evolution of being a solo practitioner, a solo doctor, doing a nice job or wanting to do a nice job, but also looking for some semblance of a life outside the office. That's the first critical evolutionary step that I had to take. And it's also an evolutionary step anybody needs to take if they want to have any kind of freedom in their life whatsoever. And that is, my gosh, as a solo owner, you're wearing every single hat there is. You're the marketer, you're the doctor, you're the clinician, you're the diagnostician, you're the x-ray tech, you're the finance manager, you're the operations manager. It's way too many things, right? And the truth of the matter is, we're not taught that stuff in chiropractic college. That's not their job. Their job is to turn out great chiropractors, and they do that. But
Yeah.
they don't prepare you for business owner or clinic ownership. But again, that's not their job. That's not their job. All that education happens after school. So the first transition you've got to be able to make is the ability to unplug or plug back into patient care at will without it affecting the patient volume or the patient collections or revenue. That's the first and hardest and single most hardest step that any chiropractor attempts to initiate within their practice. And almost every time I see it fail miserably because they didn't build in all the necessary building blocks so that they could extricate themselves at will from practicing, whether that means just taking a vacation and still earning the normal income without a single drop in patient visits or revenue, or if they want to ultimately own multiple clinics like a lot of our doctors do. And that builds in even more freedom. But to get there, you've got to build in the steps so that you can escape without a subsequent drop in revenue or collections. Does that sort of make sense?
Definitely. And I'm listening, thinking of all the different hats for the chiropractor as a healer, as a business owner. And then I think, then throw in what if they want to get married, have kids? Holy cow, these are other hats than they have to master. So, how do
And
you guys?
Jaclyn, you missed one here too. He did make a differentiator when I said the largest chiropractic franchise, but I was meaning largest chiropractic owned franchise, of course. But Chris, you corrected me that it's about rehab also that you do. And
Full
so
scope.
adding that
Exactly.
on as a layer is a whole nother element. But without getting
Well,
into the details on that, most chiropractors can't do it on their own clinic, adding on the physical therapy or the rehabilitation aspect of it. So you do that through insurance as well, right?
Insurance and cash. We don't discriminate.
hey,
Yeah.
let's not bash the insurance people too. We want them both.
They play a critical role, and as long as it's available, I consider it malpractice not to use it. I just don't think it's fair. Joe, what would you think if let's say Jaclyn wasn't involved in chiropractic and she's living out in God only knows where, let's call it Denver, and she gets in a car wreck, and the chiro won't see her because he won't file the insurance. That's just not right. It's just not right. So
Well,
that's why
and
we
the
made
chiropractor's doing it because otherwise he's a slave to the insurance company, just like the business. So absolutely, it's not right. Yeah.
Right. So we look for in our clinics, we build a balanced practice where roughly 50% of the revenue comes from cash and roughly 50% comes from any third party payer. Again, we don't discriminate. We don't care. We accept the patients from where they're at, but we always recommend what they need and we build in programs so that they can get the care that they need and they can afford the care that they need. It's very straightforward. It's very transparent too.
I can only imagine all the solutions that you've had to come to get to the level of success that you guys have right now. And
It takes a team.
I was going to say, and then now, Dr. Joe, when you use the term full scope, so Dr. Joe kind of threw in like rehab, but tell me, how would you define what's a full scope, a HealthSource clinic? And because I'm sure there's some chiropractors, there's got to be an evolution, right? They probably start one place, or do they suddenly then get into all the bells and whistles right away? Or tell me a little bit about how you define that.
How I define full scope is very simple. It's practicing to the full parameters of the licensure, which we have in wherever we practice, whether that's a state or a country. It's to practice at full scope. If you don't, you will lose it. And that all starts with what we do before we ever start taking care of a patient, which is come up with an appropriate diagnosis. Let's figure out what's wrong. And yes, certainly there could be subluxation there, but if there's subluxation, there's always concomitant conditions that are there at the same time. Always, always, always by definition of a musculoskeletal injury, which is what a subluxation is. So it's coming up with an appropriate diagnosis, and our schools are doing a beautiful job in teaching chiropractors how to be solid diagnosticians within the MSK arena, and then utilizing that, making an appropriate and relevant and definitive diagnosis, and then building a treatment program that will adequately address all the multifactorial issues that are present within that particular injury. And that's where the rehab comes in. Chiropractic adjustment does great for specific things. And these other technologies, and we're the most tech-driven, most tech-forward brand that exists within chiropractic. And the newer technologies give us an outstanding patient result. And at the end of the day, guys, that's all I care about. And we've got 27,000 5-star Google reviews. Nobody else even comes close to that. And we have those. I think so too. And as long as I have a pulse and a run in this company, it's going to keep growing. So it's based on outcomes. That's all. It's all I care about. Are the patients? We've got 23 million patients. Are they getting better? That's what I want. That's most
Chris,
important.
you got me sold. Now, how hard is it to get? I'm serious. You don't do international. I'm in Panama City, Panama. But honestly, taking even 2 days off is like you see it and you're like, oh my God, I've got 15 work days that I can see patients this month and I got to go to a seminar. It's, oh no.
The first step, Dr. Joe, is you've got to begin to replicate yourself. We've got to employ the principle of leverage. And if we want to scale any practice or any kind of business, I don't care what it is, you have to deploy the principle of leverage. So for you, that means employing an additional chiropractor or more that is equally as adept as you are at taking care of patients, both their patients and your patients. That is the first and critical steps. They've got to be trained exactly how you are trained. They've got to deliver adjustments exactly as you adjustments. They've got to be able to diagnose like you. They've got to be able to write treatment programs like you. In other words, get the same results. So that's the first critical step. And this is often overlooked, and more often than not, it's done incorrectly. Let's just say it's you. Okay, geez, I want to have vacations. I'm going to hire a doctor, and boom, you hire a doctor, and a month later you take a vacation. That's a recipe for disaster. I know this because I've done it, right? And I've seen many other chiropractors do it. Everything that we've done and it succeeded on is based upon the errors that we made in the past. We learn more from our mistakes than we do from our victories. So your first step, or any chiropractor's first step, is to basically clone yourself. Hire an outstanding chiropractor, train them very well, and pay them very well. Treat them right as you would want to be treated. And that's just the first step. Make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So
how do you do that? that is that why we go to you, because seriously, I know that people who, like you said, that's right there a mouthful, I'm sure. It sounds
but
like
Chris, you also said train them to do everything that you already know how to do. But then that's the point. Some of them are beating down the same door every day and doing the same. And maybe the system is not optimized like you've been able to do. You're obviously, you didn't just open up yesterday. You guys have been around for quite a while now. So how does, there's a lot of trial and error, right? By now you have that figured out, Chris. So how does someone who's like, all right, maybe even fresh out of college, they just want to open up for the first time. Is that an option for them, or do they already have to have a practice?
Oh no, we take just like we accept virtually any patient in the condition that they're in. We accept pretty much any chiropractor in the condition they're in, whether or not they have a practice, whether it's struggling, failing, ultra successful, whether or not they have 6 practices. Doesn't matter to us. We work with all of those types of people.
That's super encouraging, Dr. Tomshack, because I'm not sure there's a lot of models that can do that, where they take somebody exactly where they're at and can. That's what I'm saying. I think there's an evolutionary model. And that's where I like it when I'm hearing you. You're like, we're non-discriminatory. We can work with anybody who wants to work with us, basically.
Anybody who wants freedom in their life, anybody who wants to practice at the highest level that our profession affords, that's our audience. And so not all chiropractors are our audience, just like not every potential associate doctor you interview is right for you. Biggest mistake, hiring the first one. Almost never works. You've got to interview a lot, and then eventually you can get to the point where, like our largest franchisee's got 6 booming clinics, and he's got 7 more licenses, so he's soon going to open 7 more. He was this past week. He was getting married in Lake Como, Italy, while all the practices were absolutely humming at full power because he's followed the appropriate systems, implemented correctly. He's an implementation genius. He just does a very good job, very coachable, and now he's got the life of his dreams. And you know what? Everybody can have that. But it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by a plan very well executed.
We need to be interviewing that doctor, and we'll follow up with that after the talk. And now the
Lake
next
Como,
question.
how about it?
So I was going to say, the next question I have is, because I'm hearing and thinking what the doctor is saying. Okay, great. I'm going to hire somebody just like me. I'm going to have to pay them probably all. So does their business grow then? Now, does the existing chiropractor start getting more time to bring in new patients? Do they and what's the time frame, do you think? Because that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, I can't afford it, right?
Absolutely.
And you're saying
they're thinking that.
They can't afford
the first step, they can't afford not to if they truly want freedom. But if they want to begin to replicate themselves and employ leverage, they've first got to concentrate very stringently and with a very focused mindset on building their practice even more successful, so that when it comes time to hire that first associate, it's not going to ding their personal income. We do not want that to happen. So we want our practices, we teach our doctors to be our owners to become significantly more successful as a solo doctor, and then begin the interview process for the associate. So you just don't, hey, I'm doing $100,000 in revenue, I want to have an associate. That's never going to work. And correspondingly to what you said, are we hiring an associate to make more money? Ultimately, yes. The only reason you ever hire an additional person into your practice is so that the practice can grow. For any other reason, it is rather circumspect. And so when we hire that doctor and we train them, we take the time and the diligence to, how long does it take to truly train the doctor? Minimum 6 months. Minimum 6 months for that associate doctor to be able to actually step into patient care. So you don't hire them and all of a sudden they're seeing new patients or the patients you don't want to see. It doesn't work that way. They've got much to learn first. So we do it methodically, we do it professionally. In our world, in our arena, we built the first online learning management system that existed in chiropractic. Over 900 classes for everything that micro classes, for everything that you can possibly or will possibly encounter running a practice. And those types of resources, an independent doctor, they don't have those resources, but they do know what works and what doesn't. So I would tell them, if they're not part of our family, then begin the process of a standard operating procedures manual so that it can be taught. If you can't adequately teach it, you don't own it, and you'll never have the results that you're looking for.
We need to probably work out a partnership with you to make available one of those classes for our listeners and readers. What do you think about
Absolutely.
that?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I think that you give first and expect later. It's a better, that order of direction seems to work better with the human population.
Dr. Tomshack, where did you graduate from chiropractic school?
I went to Palmer in beloved Iowa and spent several just fun-filled years in that cold climate.
Beautiful.
Fortunately, Palmer, Florida didn't open up till I was done, or I would have gone there.
The outcome would have probably been different because you would have studied a lot less probably in Palmer, Florida, but
that's possible.
The good weather, right? Now, do you ever encounter any philosophical differences with chiropractors that come into your HealthSource, and are you able to adapt to their needs, or how does that work?
No, we don't change our operating philosophy. And our operating philosophy is very simple. It's to do what is appropriate within our scope to get the best result for the patient. That's it, right?
Patient-centered care, right.
Absolutely. So if you're strictly an adjustment-only kind of doctor, that's not our model. That's not what we do. Practice very tech-forward. And it requires a different, and I'm not disparaging them, one iota. At one time in my career, I was the same way the first year. But that more expansive thought process to say, hey, you know what? It's not the philosophy here that should be ruling the practice. It's the result for the patient. How do I get the best result for the patient? Let's do that.
That sounds like a good idea. Sounds like an ethical, kind of almost holy way to live your life, right? I did want to know, because I see a lot of guys, they work their life off in the clinic, grinding, hitting the high spots, whatever, and then they want to retire and go to sell their practice. And maybe they're not able to monetize that like they thought they could. They don't have those repeatable systems. Have you ever done an analysis for how a HealthSource owner is able to transition their practice versus, say, a normal chiropractor? Or could you talk on that point? I know that franchises, if you try to buy a McDonald's, it's a lot of money, right? Is there any advantage or disadvantage to that?
McDonald's are incredibly expensive, actually, and they don't make what they used to make, not even close. So, how do I address this question? Are you asking, okay, what does a solo doctor do?
No. Okay, so a chiropractor who's selling their practice at the end of their practice life.
Got it.
Sometimes it's hard for them to transition, to quantify all the goodwill that they've been able to create. And I'd been talking to some of my friends that graduated from Indiana School of Business and all this stuff. And they were telling me about how when they sell a franchise, they can get multiples of what really it sounds like a chiropractor can get for their clinic when they're selling it versus a franchise that's earning a certain amount of money. Do you see the same thing with HealthSource franchises, or is that just something that is more? For other types of things?
You are spot on, because in the greater business world, and Dr. Maz is on here as well, we're unicorns in this field. We both studied business at the undergraduate level and the graduate level, right? So we studied business before we ever became chiropractors. So we understand business principles. And it is a fact that a franchise sells for higher multiples of revenue, or it's not of revenue, I just said that incorrectly, of profit, or what's most currently termed EBITDA. Earnings before interest, taxes, deductions, depreciation, etc. And a franchise absolutely sells for a higher multiple. Why? Because it's built on systems. So here's what we see. when a doctor approaches us, they say, hey, do you have a buyer for our practice? Because we do a lot of that as well. Okay, tell us a little bit about your practice. Well, here's what I think it's worth. And that's not what I want to know. I want to see the profit and loss statements. We need to do an evaluation of the practice. And I doubt anybody does more practice valuations than do we. And so we determine what the appropriate value range is for that practice. And because it's a solo practice, it's heavily personality dependent. So the moment that doctor retires to sell, the practice is worth but a fraction of what it was the week prior because so many patients will not return.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like a real hit. You know what I mean? After they've invested all of this time in building that up, in the reputation in the city, and then it's just a hard drop. Right.
Yeah. It's my life's work is worth a fraction. Unfortunately, that's the harsh reality of a personality dependent practice or business of any type. They all sell at a much lower price point than one would hope for. But when a practice is built upon systems, that's the value of a franchise. And it's not, hey, I've got no autonomy. You have all the autonomy in the world. It's your practice. They're your patients. You do what's appropriate. We'll show you best practices and operational systems so that you can run everything at an optimized level. And when you do, the doctor can then unplug themselves at will, plug themselves back in. Now we have a non-personality dependent practice or business, and we have a practice that's worth infinitely more money than a practice that has the opposite reality. That's just basic. That's business 101.
And that's kind of what I wanted the listeners to hear, right? Because if they're out there and they're in year 10, maybe even 20, and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to retire in 15 years, or some never retire. I talked to a guy the other day who's in his 50th year of practice. But the point is that when they go to the well, it's going to be a little drier than had they opted to go with a different model that was repeatable, specifically proven systems like Dr. Tomshack here is talking about. So
one of those systems is I totally get it. And part of those systems that we teach is, okay, what do you do with the extra cash that you're earning throughout your practice career? Because as an independent business person, like most chiropractors are, you're responsible for your own retirement. Social Security is not going to get it, right? That's not going to get it done. $3,000 a month, it's not going to happen. So you have to build your own retirement. So that's a whole system in and of itself, and with very strict hierarchical series of steps or types of investment vehicles. So we coach our doctors all the way up. So here's the first thing you would deploy in terms of building your retirement egg. And then here's the next, and here's the next. And as you become more successful, you can begin to fund these other strata and end up with a magnificent retirement, which is what we want all of our doctors to have. Shoot, absolutely. 8 years of college minimum. Some of us are slow. Dr. Boz and myself, we have 10. You want to be able to retire at some point in time, right? And now I did chiropractic as a practicing chiropractor at age 37. And we've got a number of our doctors inside HealthSource retired earlier because we taught them the systems on how to do that, and they could then do that. Then they run their practice, or in most cases, practices, without seeing any patients themselves, which is really cool freedom. That was the easiest time of my life, guys, was when I had 4 very large practices. I wasn't treating, I was managing them. Easiest time of my life. Built a franchise, I work harder.
But not challenging enough for you. You needed that stress.
I was bored stiff. I did it all in an hour and a half a day. I literally had nothing to do. And that's what birthed the whole thing of this whole business of the HealthSource Chiropractic, the franchise, is I was bored to death. And I wanted to make a much bigger impact. So I went from all the patients I could physically see, and I was maxed, to now we have 23 million patients. That's leverage. That's kind of cool. We live vicariously through our chiropractors' hands. We really do.
That's really making a difference. I'm trying to think here too. There's so many topics we could go into. Dr. Joe, I'm just wondering did you want to keep going and expanding on some questions there?
So I did, because recently in the July issue, which you'll see right over my shoulder right here, Dr. Tomshack wrote on. So Dr. Tomshack wrote, I don't want to be a franchise owner. I want to be a chiropractor. Being a franchise owner does sound kind of dull, right? It sounds like McDonald's, but this is not McDonald's, right? Can you talk on some of those points that we mentioned earlier? We know the chiropractic, but what does the rehab look like? What kind of, are you talking about McKenzie exercises? Are you talking about machines in the office that people are actually doing weight training? How does that look? Or does everyone have their own option?
No, it's a very good question. No, our clinical protocols are standardized. So we will teach the doctors exactly what works best today. We don't just teach on this is where like the philosophy of I'm dead set on I've got to have shockwave or I've got to have this. You know what? What's the science say? And the cool thing with artificial intelligence today is if I ask the question appropriately, I can find out what is the most effective rehabilitative technique, bar none, for the acute patient or for the chronic patient. And that gets rid of all the philosophical arguments, or dogmatic arguments might be a better term. And we go simply to the crux of the matter. What works best? And so for HealthSource, our current palette of services, which employs 8 different things. Now, and that will change over time, because what we do today is drastically different than when we launched in 2006, 20 years ago. And I will tell you, 5 years from now, it's going to be different. 10 years is going to be drastically different. Why? Because technological innovation happening now at lightning speed, especially because of artificial intelligence. It speeds up the innovation cycle tremendously. And so we stay current. We test everything. I've got boxes of stuff that's always being shipped to me, boxes of very expensive stuff and we test it. So it's not like McKinsey, not that there's not a place for that, but we do so much more than that. It's high,
right.
Because the new technological advances allow us to get a better result in less time, with less use of our hands, doing things like scraping or certainly flexion distraction or old school.
No, there's a level up. So you're using modalities. Are you using shockwave? There's definitely some good data on shockwave. Are you using laser or some of the other electrical modalities?
Sure. Let's start with the acute patient. Right now, there isn't a shred of evidence to suggest otherwise. And I know this because I just did another deep dive 2 months ago. High-powered Class 4 laser outperforms everything for the treatment and healing of an acute musculoskeletal patient. Absolutely. So it's the high-powered type we use. We import them from Germany. It's the best machine on the planet. And that's for part of the acuteness. Now, you couple that with the 3rd-generation spinal decompression. And spinal decompression is not just for herniated discs anymore, not by any stretch. And the research clearly shows that it accelerates the healing process, the healing time of soft tissue injury as well. And if you've got subluxation, by definition, there's soft tissue injury as well. And so you couple those two for the acute patient along with rehabilitative exercise. And we've got a proprietary algorithm we developed to make this straightforward, make it simple, get the best result. And then as the patient moves into more of a subacute or / chronic, or the healing, the in-depth healing phase, we switch over. Then you can switch from laser, though laser does a nice job with chronicity, it does a better job with acute. Then that is where one form of shockwave shines with more of a chronic patient, and specifically P-wave. And so you can go either that route, or there's something called pulse, which is a different technology, gets you to the same place in a hands-free environment. So the hands-free environment is what we prefer. It allows us to treat even more patients, get the exact same result, and not have to have a dedicated room with gowns and towels and glop and all that happy stuff. So we approach it, what will scale best while delivering the very, very, very best result. And that's not shockwave. It just isn't.
That is awesome. That is an awesome summary of all of your rehabilitation back, and I love it. We could talk for hours on this, but unfortunately, we do have a hard stop at 30 minutes today. Jaclyn, I don't know if you had any final comment here.
I have to ask, because it would be a disservice, at least when I'm hearing this, and anybody who's saying like, I would love to do this, but how much does it cost, Chris? Talk to our doctors. Like, how do they do this? It sounds expensive. Of course, you got the answers and figured it out, but just tell us a little bit so that our listeners who might be interested would know where to go, what to do, and knowing that I guess you guys have a system in place that's going to hold their hand through even the financial aspects. Correct?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. It's like, I like that softball. So thank you, Jaclyn. So first, I would suggest that everybody anybody who's got an interest in better outcomes for their patient and better outcomes for your. First, I would suggest that everybody anybody who's got an interest in better outcomes for their patient and better outcomes for your practice, and more freedom in your life. Go to thechiroBlueprint.com. So it's thechiroBlueprint.com. That is step one. They were going to learn some valuable information on implementing various service streams into their clinic to get better results and start to get a semblance of freedom. Regarding costs, we have programs. We are not expensive, number one. But to the best of my knowledge, we have the smallest franchise fee of any of the franchises, yet we're the largest. And we have a roll-in program. So let's just say, Jaclyn, you're the chiropractor and you've got a practice and you want something better. We shine with converting these practices. We will build a specific program for you based upon the current health status of your practice on how to gradually roll in what we do over a period of anywhere from 8 to 12 to 18 to 24 months. So that when it's time to secure the next piece of technology that we use in our system, you're paying for it with brand new money instead of money you were going to collect anyways. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're very cognizant of our doctors' checkbooks. We don't want them to lose money. We want them to make more money based upon better results.
Very good. So the chiropracticblueprint.com.
TheChiroBlueprint.com.
TheChiroBlueprint.com. Listeners, if you are interested, or I know you're interested, so go to that website, take a look at everything. Dr. Tomshack has been through it already, so he can help you get to that next level, help you achieve your dreams, more free time. If your goal is to retire, he can definitely help you do that as well. On behalf of TAC Tic Talk, I'm Dr. Joe Busch for Jaclyn Touzard and Dr. Tomshack. Talk to you next time.